All right, so today there is a special treat in store for everybody because I have Montell Watson joining us for Life and Business with Coach Kim. And dude, it is going to be an interesting segment for sure because you there's so much I want to ask you. But before we get started, just share with the audience whatever you want to share with them, personal, professional, it doesn't matter.
Man, I like that opener, right? Just personal or professional. Well, I mean, personal right now, just to let everybody know, I'm a dad of four kids, seven, five, four, and two. Um, Married for gosh, 11 years now. And I am in full sports mode right now. This past weekend, Kim, we had six games, two basketball games. Oh, sorry. On Saturday, we had six games, two basketball games, two baseball games, soccer and softball. And I coach my son's basketball team, and I thoroughly love it and enjoy it. Um, and dude, that just gives me life. That gives me life. That is for sure. I know you're a coach, and I love coaching and leading individuals, but I actually recently did a post and how I talked about youth sports has been one of the biggest leadership experiences I think I've ever had. And it's so much fun and so fulfilling. And then on the business side of the fence, man, I get the pleasure and blessing of leading our diverse and multicultural markets here movement along with our service and recapture team. And man, I've been here for 8 years, man, and I also sit on the board of our movement schools, which is something that gives me fulfillment as well. So, you get the movie. That's right, Eastland got the Eastland shirt, and I love it, love it.
Um, dude, I promise you, I have so much to ask you, but let's go back to the coaching thing for a minute
Yeah,
because so I coached my son in baseball for it must have been 8 years, and I started when he was four, so t-ball. And for me, in my mind, I thought I was supposed to be the kid's buddy, and I just want everybody to be happy and having fun and all that stuff. But what I realized really quickly was those parents didn't want me to be like so they're like, hey, what about my son? His skills? I'm like, okay. So I learned from that initial experience that I needed to be more than just their buddy. So I
yeah,
said, okay, moving forward, I'm going to set a schedule. I'm going to teach them social skills. I want them to develop social skills, skills on the baseball field, and then also how to stay safe. You want them to stay safe as well. And that worked for me. So you a little bit different. So I did play baseball, but nothing like on the collegiate level or anything like that. But you did. So tell me how you harness the ability to be a dad, a coach, and to not be, for lack of a better term, overbearing with your experiences through the years.
yeah. Well, I thoroughly I enjoy it, right? I love it. I enjoy it, and it's a cool experience because I actually have a really good team, right? It's so that makes it a lot of fun. And I feel my previous experience as a college athlete, obviously it helps me just from the technical aspect and understanding that they need to know some of the base levels of basketball. And I think one of the big things that a lot of times that one thing that I forgot initially is the language, right? All sports have a language to it, and initially I'd be saying things to them, and they're like, "You're speaking a whole entire different language. What are you talking about?" Right?
Mm.
And so then, peeling back the onion and say, "Okay, let me teach them not only the basic technical aspects, but they also need to learn the language." I think communication in sports is so huge, and I always tell our team, I was like, "Do you want to get from good to great? You got to be great communicators, right?" And so I always make them say it. I'm like, say good to great. And we repeat it together. And I always ask the question, how do we become good to great? And then they all say communication. And so even at the second grade level, I make it very important that we have to be able to communicate. And I know you and I both know this, but it don't matter what team you're on, what relationship you're in, communication is one of the most important things that you got to have as a team. But and then the dad aspect of it, Kim, I know you touched on that and mentioned that. I mean, I love it. I love that I'm able to coach my son. And it's probably great for him because if I wasn't coaching, I would be yelling at him the entire time from the sidelines, right? So it also helps him. It helps our relationship. I personally think because I don't coach baseball and I have to refrain from yelling at him the entire game or practice or whatever it is. And I'm sure the baseball coaches, they love me on the sidelines, but that's the competitive aspect that the nature that I have, and I love it. And I think it works out well because I'm not the dad coach. Because I think we all get to see a lot of that, right? The dad coaches. I'm not the dad coach that only focuses on my son. Like I want to make sure that the entire team grows, the individuals grow, and there's all different personalities, all different parent personalities that you have to relate to and deal with and help. Our main goal is to help them grow as kids as well as in the sport that they're playing. So man, I mean I could talk about that all day long, and I love it.
Of course.
I enjoy it.
Do you find yourself being, for lack of a better term, being harder on your son than all the other kids, or no?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not even going to sugarcoat that. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And I know you and I've talked about this, but the I read the book The Gap in the Game,
Yes.
which there is actually a section in The Gap in the Game that talks about the way that you lead your kids. And I would always put him in the perspective of being in the gap, because I'd be like, you're not living up to where you should be, right? Mm-hmm. And so I would be extremely hard on him in that sense. What I realize now today is, like, if I'm being honest with myself, I wasn't that good I wasn't even close to being that good.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
But now I focus on his growth. Like, are you growing? Right? Are you growing? And if you're growing and you're paying attention and you have good energy when you're here, like that's all that matters to me. Now I'm still hard on him, right? I want him to, if I see him, walking or not helping his teammate up off the floor, like I'm a little bit more harder on him than I am, so probably some of the other kids. Like I still will correct the other kids, but I'm quicker to correct him, right? So but yes.
You're helping him develop leadership skills by doing that too, right? So obviously you mentioned you're married, you got 4 kids, you got one son and 3 daughters.
Yes.
So you cannot do this stuff alone. So tell me about your bride. Tell me about your wife and how she's an integral part of you, not only at work, but at home, and balancing all that. How does that work?
Yeah, it's funny you use the word balancing. We just did her and I spoke at like a leadership and entrepreneur conference together, and the topic was balancing business, babies, and bliss, right?
Oh,
And I couldn't do it without her. I mean, it's plain and simple, right? And quite frankly, she does a lot of she has a flexible schedule in the sense of she's an entrepreneur and how she runs her business, and she leads a social media marketing and influencer business, and she has the pleasure of being able to be with our kids the majority of the day while I'm here. I still go to the office every single day, right? And so she spends a lot of that important quality time with them, getting them off the bus, make sure they do the homework, playing with them until dad gets home. But I mean, we also own a business. We also own properties. Like, so there's so many aspects, and we like to think of it. I always say it's not really a work life balance. Is actually work life integration, right? And I could go further and further on that of, like, even like our work family is that's a part of our, like, we're all integrated, right? That is part of our life, and I couldn't do it without her. And I mean, for gracious sakes, like we physically couldn't do it when I'm going here and she's going there, and then we meet and switch because of different things. Like, it's just it's so many variables, but couldn't do without her, and love her deeply. And on her own merit, she's extremely successful as well.
Yeah.
So
So I'm not going to say the person's name, but I'm going to say what he said. He said when it comes to parenting, a parent of a single child does not have a clue about parenting until you have more than one kid. Because now you like for you have four, so you got four different personalities. I mean, the 2-year-old. I mean, think about that. And then you have the boy that's a 7-year-old, and so in between there, and there's all stuff going on. You got discipline, you've got this, you've got that. There's a lot going on there, man. But so obviously that's truly important. So now I'm going to ask you a business question.
yeah.
And to me, this is an important question because I've experienced it, but I want to hear your point of view. And I'm just going to preface it by saying this. Have you ever taken on a role and you're sitting in one of the initial meetings and you're like, I have no clue what they're talking about right now. I mean, everything's French to me. But at the same time, this is the advice I want you to share with people. But at the same time, even though you're feeling that
Mm-hmm.
you're like, I don't know what they're talking about, but you know who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and you know that you're going to form new habits and obtain the information and experience you need to do the job well. So
Yeah.
I don't even know if I asked that good, but if you could share your thoughts on it.
I mean, absolutely. I think the first job I had when I was here at Movement was very similar to that. I mean, I came from being in a producing role, right? A sales producing role, to being in much more of a leadership project management role. And yeah, I mean, the first, and I also switched segments of the financial industry. I was in the investment world previously, managing my own book of business. And then I came over here and I switched back to mortgage. I hadn't been in mortgage in 5 years at the time, right? And so switching over from investment to mortgage, it's been a while. And then you have the language. We talked about language earlier, right? You have the mortgage language on all the institutional internal knowledge around things, and it yeah. So sitting there being like, oh wow, I have no idea what is being said or talked about, but I know that I'm here for the challenge. I know that I can quickly learn. I know that I'll dive in to quickly learn as well, right? And I think that my work ethic and some of the things that I was taught from my parents, and from being a previous athlete, overcoming, different things, like, yeah, I'm definitely felt comfortable in the challenge, but also knowing like, oh, wow, like I have no idea what y'all talking about. But I'm gonna learn quickly, right? So yes, that's actually a really good question. Kim, I love that one. I love that question.
And so obviously that translates into other areas of your life. Like you mentioned that you guys own some businesses, investment properties. So have you ever been hesitant to start something new like that
Mm-hmm.
and just say, you know what, I don't think this is the right time? First of all, that's BS, right? It's never, if you say that, it's never going to be the right time. But have you ever been hesitant to say, look, we don't know what we're doing, so we're not going to do it? How did you overcome that?
But I think fear steals your joy, right? And I think that a lot. I mean, I feel that anyone that says that they've never been fearful of those type of things, that they may be telling themselves a little bit of a lie. You have to approach it head on, and I think after so many times of doing the hard thing, and understanding that failing actually isn't that bad if you try it and it doesn't work out, like a lot of us we're afraid of that. We're afraid of what other people say. And once you get over that mentally in your head, man, it just becomes easier and easier every time. And I think that I look for opportunities to continue to get better internally. And if I start to feel fear, then it lets me know that I should probably step into it. And I feel like those situations never go away. There's always a fearful situation in your life it'll pop up, and your body and your emotions tell you, don't do that. Don't do that. You shouldn't do that. And here's all the reasons why you shouldn't do it, right? Um, and more than likely you should step into that. And it might be the calling that you've been looking for your whole life. And I'll tell you, there's been times where I was fearful of things and I stepped into them and I failed drastically. But then I kept going and I pushed through, and pushing through not only helped me because I feel you only fail if you stop, right?
Oh yeah.
And keep, being able to keep going on those different issues that I was fearful of and thought that I might have failed on long term, and end up looking back like it was a great experience because I learned. And then also I kept going in the things that I'm talking specifically like an investment property that I originally did a flip on. Man, I failed miserably on that first one.
Uh-huh.
Kim failed miserably.
Mhm.
Um, and then, as I kept going, now, looking back on it, I was so glad that I did.
Yeah.
And I had talked about so many people, I know we're in this industry, but so
Yeah.
many people talk about like, oh, I'm gonna buy an investment property. Oh, I'm gonna try it, I'm gonna do it. And we so often talk ourselves out of it, but I'm so glad that I did. And now, own Airbnbs and like I look back on it, I know that what I learned is that I don't want to do flips. I know that for sure.
See? I love that. So, so I grew up in foster care.
Yeah.
So I grew up in the system in New York City. And so there were people in my life, mostly in my formative years, like your kid's age, young like that. And you just mentioned about failing, right? So there was a elementary school gym teacher named Mr. Pollock in New York City. And he said, if you're going to be in my gym class, you will try. He
Mhm.
refused to hear the words, I can't do it. He said, trying and failing is better than not trying at all. And think about it, man. I've kept that with me for decades. What he said to me, that one thing he said, and one thing he taught us about just trying. You got to try.
Yeah.
And so I know we're limited on time, man, but I have to get to this. Obviously, I have to get to this. Two more real good questions, but one is about taking care of yourself, being
Mhm.
mentally and physically fit. And I
Yeah.
know that you have to do it because who you're married to, but tell me about that. Tell me what you do, what makes you feel energized and get you.
Yeah. Yeah, so I want to definitely want to touch on that. My wife, for those that don't know, my wife was a two-sport Division I athlete, CrossFit Games athletes, one of the top fitness folks in the world.
Oh yeah.
And now that is her medicine, right? Working out is her medicine, and she actually got very, very popular on social and she went viral because she was working out while pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's an easy one that I always lean back on if I don't feel like wanting to do it and whatnot. My wife is my inspiration easily with that when it comes to the fitness aspect of it. I'll tell you, man, I love working out. It is definitely it gives me if I don't work out, this is a better way to describe it. If I don't work out, I'm in a really bad way, Kim. Like
Yeah.
I'm not mentally in the highest space that I could be in. And as you can imagine, it obviously flows to your physical as well. But you know, about a year and some change ago, when I got diagnosed with gout, and then you and I talked about this, that was a major change on my nutrition. I've always been someone that works out. I played college athletics. I'm always have been into fitness in some shape, form, or fashion. But the nutrition aspect of it changed for me with being diagnosed with gout and making me, very conscious on the fact that I need to put better things into my body. Right. And as we were sitting here talking about it, like I worked out pretty consistently, and I felt like at the time, I feel like I eat pretty well, right? I eat pretty well. I probably was eating, not probably, I was eating way worse than I should have been, and drinking more alcohol than I should have been, right? And you combine those two things over long periods of time, and like there you have it. And so it is a vital, very important thing for my mental and physical health, and it will always be a part of my life.
Yeah. Um, that's first of all, that's great advice. Secondly, I admire you so much because of the work you do with Movement Mortgage, our company, right? And and it's to me, it's critically important work, not only for our communities,
Mhm.
but for the people that work in our company, and then also for our realtor partners, the vendors, everybody that's involved in the home buying process. Having people realize the dream of home ownership is critically important, but it's more to it than that, right? We're talking about diversity and we're talking about things like that. So, as of today's date, what do you see as the biggest challenge uh, for the work that you do? What is the biggest challenge that you feel like you're faced with?
So I think one of the biggest challenges, I'm going to talk about two of them. I think one challenge that we have holistically in some of your diverse and multicultural markets, specifically in the Black community, the historical trauma of being told no, that it's not for you to own a home, right? I mean, that is generations of trauma being passed down from family to family, and real trauma, right? This is real trauma. This is not, made up things we're talking about here. And so to be able to unpack that and get over that it is a large item to tackle. But I'm here for the challenge. I know you're here for the challenge. And I hope and pray that some of the work that we get to do and we get to do together, that inspires other lenders and other individuals to get into that fight. And it's hard work. It's not easy, right? It's long-term work of changing the behaviors of individuals and mindsets. Behaviors and mindset are two of the hardest things to change,
Right.
right? And then so many people want to talk about education and all these different people, but if you can change the heart and the mind, I think the behaviorals will actually follow. And it's not so much, yes, being educated in different aspects of financial empowerment is important, but gosh, if you could change somebody's mindset and they say, you know what, I can do it and it is for me, they're probably going to do it. They're going to own a home one day,
Okay.
right? And so that's where it's like, that's one of the biggest challenges that I see. um Obviously, when you talk about the technical aspects of it, of just affordability, that's a major challenge in the marketplace. When you start to think about the minority loan officers in the industry, I think that's a little bit of a challenge. I don't think we obviously don't have enough. And I think it's very important that we continue to increase the number of Black and Hispanic loan officers specifically in the industry. And then also we have to be intentional around creating leaders,
Mm.
in the space as well. So those are some of the main items that I would say, Kim.
Yeah, man. Well, look, man, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for carving out some time to do this for me and for everybody else too that's listening. And do you have any final thoughts you want to share with anybody?
Yeah, man. Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me on, man.
Uh,
And as I am thankful for you, man, more than you realize, and and I love I know we knew of each other when you
yes.
were not at Movement, and then now it's an absolute pleasure to get to work with you, and help any way I can. And you obviously have helped me immensely as well. And what you do, the work you do in Atlanta, in the A and beyond, is very important work. And I'm thankful of you, and hopefully I'll be able to be on your show again in the future, my man.
There you go, man. All right, brother. Take
I
care.
appreciate you, brother. Thank you now.